Monster questers traveled to Papua New Guinea to search for a flying monster that is said to be stalking humans. Stories about the beast that the natives call the demon flyer go as far back as the 16th century.
This is an old sea chart from 1595 depicting Papua New Guinea, and it has animals depicted on here that are similar to pterosaurs that could very well be distant memories of legends of possible pterosaurs.
This sea chart was found in the National Library of Australia. It was drafted over 400 years ago and warns mariners of local monsters.
All cultures, every country, has stories of dragons in their legends. Couldn't that be possibly based in real history?
If you hear the music playing, then you have arrived. Whether you have a story to tell or an encounter that you cannot explain, you've come to the right network. This is the ROPEN Cryptozoology Network in connection with the ROPEN Radio Network, broadcasting from Salem, Oregon. Welcome, my fellow Oregonians and avid CC Media viewers all over Oregon counties. A big special thank you to all YouTubers subscribing to our network. We are now at the 700 mark, thanks to you. Every one of you who's watching, you know who you are. Anyways, moving along. Our last show was Pterosaur Research 101. Well, this is now 102, as in part 2. We touched on so many things, but there is more. Just to give you an idea, picture an iceberg with the peak sticking out of the ocean. But beneath it is a huge mass, unseen to the eye at least, on the surface. There are paleontologists and there are cryptozoologists. There are those who study the fossils and those who study the fossils and the presumed to be extinct living creatures. We need both. Garth Guessman provided a wonderful presentation touching on sightings as well as biblical references. Yes, he did. Now we're about to explore a whole new ball game, folks. Garth and I will not be alone this time. Joining us today is a very special lady. Her actual identity will be kept confidential in order to protect her, as well as her research. She is an expert wildlife biologist, and like a lot of us, has seen with her own eyes living, breathing pterosaurians. I'm very excited to have her on the ROPEN Radio Network. So sit back, put us on Bluetooth or social media, and seek the truth with me. Let's welcome back my friend Garth Guessman, Field of Research for Genesis Park and President of South Bay Science. Welcome back, Garth.
So, what's going on, brother?
A lot, actually. I'm so glad we can actually take this time now and just fellowship, because it has been one of those strange months for me. But I'm glad I can break away. Hope everything's going well for you too, and at your job. I know that it was nice to hear from you back in May. You called me, you're like, hey, let's talk a little bit more of this. That was so much fun. I agree, yeah. It was. Yeah. So how's your job going?
Oh, well, I think I speak for all firefighters in general. We are getting ran through the ringer.
I bet.
It's just the call load is insane. We have so much homelessness and poverty, and you know, the calls just come in back to back sometimes throughout the night. It's worrying.
I bet. There's a lot of homelessness going on in Oregon that I've never seen before. All of a sudden, ever since COVID hit, this has been a major problem. So it's sad to see, especially when I go into the hospitals or even when we bring it up at the Capitol as well. It's a lot to take in. It does wear down. Wears you down a little bit. So
we were already one of the busiest departments in the nation.
Okay.
You know, per capita.
Yeah.
We're up there. We're in the top 100 easy, and sometimes we make it in the top 10.
I see.
I'm happy to be here.
Yes.
I'm excited about the cool things that we're observing out in the field. And though I haven't been able to get out there because of COVID for the last year, we have seen some amazing things in the field, and it's so cool. And to have Jane herself on, let me tell you, she is Superman of cryptozoology. I'm talking about her capabilities of sensing and seeing and hearing things that I hear maybe a third of what she sees.
Yeah.
The only reason I can verify that she's seeing these things, because I've seen about maybe a fifth or a sixth of what she sees while she's seeing it. So I know she's not just blowing hot air.
Yeah. Yeah.
So one of the things we do is we'll separate ourselves 10 feet apart, and we will triangulate any sighting we see, especially flashes, because they can be very deceptively, you think they're so much further away than they are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So she'll see a flash, she'll call it out, and I said, yeah, I saw it too. And we'll both point to it, and then we'll walk to that intersection of where we are pointing to.
Mm-hmm.
And it's 20 feet away, it's 100 feet away. It's not out in the atmosphere burning up, coming into our atmosphere,
Yeah.
We're doing that regularly. But I've seen some of the things she has seen. But now that she's been out in the field for about a year, and documenting what she's seeing through field drawings and writing it down, she just has some phenomenal sightings. She's the only one I know of that's really seen clearly the claws and the wings. No, I should say the claws on the wings, not the claws on the wings, the claws on the wings.
Jane, we have Jane with us. Thank you so much, Jane. I appreciate your time.
All right, great.
Thank you for being with us.
You're welcome. Thank you for inviting me.
It's an absolute pleasure. I know that you are quite familiar with some of these things that we're going to be speaking about, and I'm glad that Garth is able to, have you on board too. And you've been spending a lot of time with him, and I feel privileged just to be able to speak to you and learn from you and hear for all the things you have to say.
Well, thank you. And it's my pleasure. And it's wonderful to be able to share some of this and let people know these creatures are alive and well.
Yes, absolutely. I agree. As Garth has had his experience, I too have had my own, just not the same way, not actually seen them, but I've heard them. And I believe that's exactly what I heard. Is one of these amazing creatures. So, are you able to share a little bit about you before we proceed?
Sure. I've been in the wildlife field for quite a number of years. It's been my career to be a wildlife biologist. So when I was approached with this, it was something very exciting to me because I also am a creation scientist and truly believe the Bible word for word, cover to cover.
Absolutely.
Which means that man and dinosaurs live together. There's a lot of evidence for that. Mm-hmm. And one day I was looking through all this different research I was doing on dinosaurs and came across a website called Genesis Park.
Yeah.
And as I was looking at that, I saw how some of these people were going out and doing cryptozoological work, which I've always been fascinated with. And I was looking at the pictures and looking at the people and wishing, wow, I wish I could do something like that.
Yes, that's how it gets started.
And lo and behold, it came about and I was able to join them.
Excellent. Wonderful. So you're living your dream.
I am, yeah.
Well, we're very honored to have you, because that's where it begins for a lot of people. They wonder how they can get involved. But first thing you got to do is just get out there. You got to go out there. You got to meet the people. You got to get out in the field, explore. And I think we're all meant for this purpose in some way, some form or another, to get out and fellowship, meet new people, and explore those areas and make sure that God's word is being heard. So you're on the right path, and fantastic. Great information.
Yes, yes. And, you know, it's really quite amazing how many people have experienced a visual sighting of pterosaurs and
Yes.
not knowing what they could possibly be. They kind of bury what they saw.
Yeah.
And when they come and hear Garth speak or David Wetzel, they just, the memories come to the surface, and they are relieved to be able to talk about it and have somebody believe them.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. And just listening to an eyewitness and being on their side, it means a lot to them, because sometimes they just get too much ridicule in their life, and that's too much for them to handle. And that's one of the reasons why they won't come forward. But when they have us to go to, that just makes it even more important, even more special.
Yes.
You just had a blank out for about 5 seconds there.
Oh,
Sorry.
we're probably going to have a little bit of that. From time
we'll
to
work through it. We'll work through it.
Yeah, we'll work through it. So,
You know, Jane, as you can see, Jane is a very humble lady, and she might not brag about herself, but I will. she has capability of doing field research way beyond what I've been able to do. She has really sharp eyes, and I'm not talking about, you know, like 20/20 vision sharp eyes. I'm saying she can pick out movement in bushes and shadows and things like that I miss, and she'll point it out to me, and then I'll see it. And I'm telling you, she gets an amazing amount of more visual testimony of these creatures just because of this capability she has. That, and I don't know what it is, but she has is a natural attractant to these creatures. I've watched creatures multiple times flash right above her head where she can't even see it. I've watched a little one, the smallest one I've ever seen, fluttering near her hair. And at the time I thought it was a bat, but later on I realized it was kind of blending into my light and everything. And I think it was a small pterosaur.
yeah.
It's just crazy. And she is a natural attractant to these things. And maybe that's another reason she's able to see so much more.
Yeah, I think you're right.
We are blessed to have somebody of her caliber, having come from a background of recovering bald eagles. She's with them. This is a lethal bird that has strong talons and beaks that can break bones. And yet she's been able to properly handle these things and care for them and get them rehabilitated.
Yeah.
That's the term I should have used, rehabilitated. And she has done field work for government agencies and zoos. And it's just an honor and a privilege to have her. She just took Genesis Park and launched it even further.
Excellent. Yeah, that's exactly what we need. When you mention the eagles, I almost want to jump into questions here, but I want to make sure we stay on track first before I jump in here. Okay. Because when I hear about eagles, the first thing I think is, okay, I know that they have the potential to pick people up off the ground. As I've seen different variations of birds do that. Makes me wonder if pterosaurs can, because I've heard from the expert paleontologist that pterosaurs cannot do that because they're so frail. But we shall see. We shall see, folks. So where we go from here, Garth, do you want to go back to your slide? Should we keep Jane involved here?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Some of my slides will be her field drawings. And like I say, she has really enriched a lot of what I've been able to present. And I would like her to give her personal take on those field drawings when I come to them.
Okay.
can make me a co-host or a host.
Yeah, let's do that.
And start getting back into the PowerPoint with David Wetzel. He was looking just at dusk. The sun had just gone down. The stars are starting to come out. And we see this black flying creature zipping up from the valley and going right over our left shoulders. And I'll give you that animation here. There it goes. I'll do it again. There it goes. I don't know if you're able to see that, but it was a black flying creature in a dimly lit setting, but we were able to pick it out. David whips around and says, "Did you see that?" And as he does that, as he's talking to me, his face lights up. "What did you see?" Now, if I were to turn around from my position, I would see stars behind me as I look up. He said, "I saw a flash right above your head, like this illustration here." And it was so bright, I saw his face light. And that was pretty intense. I've seen that 3 different times in my field research where somebody next to me, their face lights up when these creatures are coming by. This is my thumb for scale. I might have gone over this last week, but I'll quickly go over it again. These are the sightings that very significant and powerful in their evidence. We're tying in the light of the creature to this black flying creature. Mm-hmm. With no other scale to go by but my thumb for reference, it was a shooting star that just suddenly grew wings. So a shooting star advances across the sky very quickly, and then wings start coming out. And I was just shocked. I called it out to David Wetzel right away. And I said, "Hey, I just saw a shooting star suddenly start sprouting some wings." And I honestly, Jake, I don't know if this was the shape of the wings. I'm sure the light was on the wings, mm-hmm. or was this just the shape of the light on the wings? You know what I mean? I'm open, but from best I could tell, they were probably wings.
Okay.
This was a super groundbreaking sighting that I had. The same thing. Oh, by the way, on that last sighting, my gut feeling was that it was about a 2-foot wingspan, give or take, the size of a big crow or a seagull. This was a shooting star that zips across the sky, just like any other shooting star. But then suddenly, as it dims completely out, a black flying creature emerged for a moment. And I could see its wings beating so fast they were blurry.
Yeah.
Like, same size. It was roughly 2 foot from wingtip to wingtip. It was moving about 30 miles an hour. But I tell you, that shooting star, if it didn't give me that little clue with the black creature flapping like that, I would have thought it was a normal shooting star. I couldn't tell it apart. Mm-hmm. How many shooting stars I see out in the field, I have to just assume they're shooting stars because you can't tell. Now, this is one that Jane saw. Jane, you want to pick this one up?
Yeah. This was an interesting one because I was with Garth and another volunteer, and I was the one that had the night scope.
Okay.
And so we're all looking across this large pond or small lake, whatever you want to call it. And I suddenly said, "Oh my gosh, do you see that?" And both of them couldn't see it. And I said, I'm seeing it. There's a pterosaur flying right now. And you can see the pattern. You can see where I picked up the visual and then the pattern as he came and turned around. And my drawing's a little bit off here. Again, it would have been where the last drawing I have of the pterosaur would have been up a little higher, or either that or the trail, the falling star trail would have been down a little bit more. Okay. Yeah, I mean, when I was drawing it, that's got off. But the same thing, I saw this, we call them night flyers or black flyers, and it did this incredible fast turn, and then went, and it was flapping its wings. And the curious thing about them is the way they flap their wings reminded me very much of the Garth. You told me what the name of this is, but I can't remember. It's when the guys do those canoes, and they're all in sync. There's a bunch of guys in a canoe, and then they all row, and then the canoe pulls forward real fast as they draw, and then as they lift the oars up to bring them forward, the canoe kind of loses speed, and then they do it again, and that's how the wing flaps work. Every time that creature flapped its wings, it shot forward, and then it just disappeared. I mean, it just disappeared, and here comes this trail. And I knew it had to have been from that animal, because as you can see, this falling star trail here, like towards the end, you see it like widens, and that tends to happen with some of these falling stars. They tend to, they sometimes even divide, and the tail end seems to be a little bit wider than what you would see in an actual falling star.
Okay.
So yeah, that was a good sighting there. And these guys never saw anything until the shooting star. And they were looking right where I was pointing. I was pointing the whole trail, and they were watching, and they couldn't see it, but I saw it in the night scope.
Yeah, you had the advantage of the night vision. So what I saw here was a shooting star turn into a black flying creature. She saw a black flying creature shoot into a shooting star, or turn into a shooting star.
Okay.
And like she was saying, the alignment is a little off, but she says basically the black flying creature just shot down. And hey, what I'm picturing here is possible hunting behavior. This thing is tracking down a bug, or maybe a smaller bat or something.
Yeah, something on the ground. It's going for.
It's shooting a light as it goes in for the kill, maybe. I mean, we're just speculating, but that's what we got right now. We're just trying to piece together what we're seeing and trying to make sense of it.
Yeah. Out of curiosity, what was the speed like? Does anybody know how fast it was moving? I mean,
boy, that's a tough one. I'm not very good at guessing the light of, or the speed of an animal. What did you say yours was on the last one, Garth?
Well, mine was shooting around. Both of these sightings were about 30 miles an hour, give or take. They were moving like a fast flying bird.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So this would have been slower than that. And you know, taking into consideration the turn that he made, and then having to pick up speed again. But I mean, he was certainly not at his top speed. He was trying to go faster. So I don't know.
Okay.
Just a rough guess, 20 to 25, maybe.
Okay. Now, Jane, this was a very interesting slide, and reading through it, I did not see your size estimate for Moses. Jane loves to name the creature she sees.
I like the name.
She
named this one Moses. How big was Moses?
Moses, I tracked from early spring, and he grew over summer. So in the beginning, I would say Moses was the size of a small crow, and by the end of the summer, he had grown to I want to say at least the size of a raven.
Okay, so you go to
common raven, a larger raven.
About 2 feet all the way, maybe to 3 feet plus.
No, I think it would have been more like 1.5 to 2.5 feet.
Okay.
Maybe.
Okay, there you go.
Okay. Like right around in there. Yeah.
Well,
and I named him Moses. I named this pterosaur Moses because he knew that I could see him at not all the time, but he knew there were times I could see him. And so he's looking at me, looking at him, and we were connecting that way. So I named him Moses because he was the first of his people. But I encountered this particular pterosaur quite a few times. And the only reason why I'm making that assumption that it's the same animal was because there was a lot of the same behavior over and over again from this animal. And other pterosaurs that I had encountered were a lot more they weren't as friendly as Moses was.
Okay.
So Jane, now was I with you on this one? And is this one where you walked away from the other researchers?
I believe, yeah. I believe you were. Yes, this was one when we were on an expedition.
Okay, Jake, I got to tell you this.
Okay.
She, like I said, she's a troll attractant. We don't understand it, but that's just the conclusion we're coming to. And everybody's got the call of nature comes, right? So everybody one by one just walks away 100 yards or whatever and finds a little spot and goes and then comes back and starts up the research again and observations. So many times she would say, oh, I got to go to the bathroom. And she'd walk away and she'd come back and, guys, you're not going to believe what I saw. Real quick. So we would escort her. Wherever you want to go, we take her. Once she's there, then we walk away. And we didn't want to miss something. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So things like this came up. So the interesting thing is the path is to the right of the stump. That's a stump to the left there.
Yeah.
The creature's on the stump, and the creature's not trying to get away from her, or it would have flown away from the path. No, it flies semi-quartering towards her over the path, and then flies out of the way.
Yeah.
It's interested in her. And like she says in her notes here, it has a translucent gray. It was kind of a very dimly lit gray color.
Okay.
Anything else you want to add to that?
No, but you're absolutely right about his curiosity. More than likely, I would say that this creature would have been probably only a year old.
Okay.
I'm guessing it by how fast he's grown, you know, I think that these guys are just fine living their lives and not paying any attention to humans whatsoever, because they feel comfortable that we can't even see them, you know. And so to have one of us notice him, I think piqued his curiosity.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jane, did this creature have a tail?
They do. They have tails, and they have obviously wingtips, but very, very common not to see the tail part or the ends of the wings. Very common in sightings. I don't know whether that's maybe the first spot on the animals that actually goes cloaked. We call it cloaked when they're blending in with the background.
Okay.
So that maybe that's the first parts that go cloaked, and then you only see the other parts more clearly, or maybe they're thinner. We really don't know, but it's very, very common, and you'll see a lot in my drawings where you don't really see the tail or the bottom half of their patagium or the ends of their wings.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
very
this is
common in the particular area that Jane was able to study for us. There was a lot of blunted wings, and we'll get into that in a little bit more. We got some illustrations, and as you can see here, Jane, were you trying to illustrate here blunt wings on the right wing there? Our left.
Yeah. Now that one, for whatever reason, it seemed like it came up and came to a point. So I'm thinking that might have been his full wing, but it could really have gone a little farther up and came to a bigger point. You know, it's real hard to tell because you see these animals in a fraction of a second.
Yeah.
And you've got to, in that time, in that fraction, it's not even one whole second. So in that time, you've got to get your mind to take a photograph of it so that you can then draw it.
and they're so quick.
It takes practice. I know Garth mentioned before that I can spot these animals and see them more than they can, and that's only because of years and years and years of doing wildlife surveys and monitoring, and that's how you find these animals. If they're standing still, it's really hard to see most animals because they do have blend in with their background.
Okay.
But even a small movement, I guess I didn't even realize how well trained I was until these guys couldn't see what I was seeing, and I couldn't believe that they couldn't see it because it was so obvious to me.
Now, Jane, I see that it says 5:10 a.m. on there, so they usually, I get the feeling that the norm is with these creatures, they're very nocturnal. Is this still the case, would you say?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Sometimes they'll come out in the crepuscular hours, you know. I know one time, it might have even been this day, Garth, that again, I went to go use the restroom and it was already light. So I went to use there was an actual public restroom, outhouse basically. And so I went there, it was a distance off. And as I was turned around and was coming back, Garth, why don't you take it from here? You saw the...
Well, this is the thing, you know, we see these things flashing over her head throughout the night.
Mm-hmm.
It means we have light. These things are producing to just indicate their joy of being around Jane.
Yeah, I would say so.
As the sun rose, and we have complete light now, there's sunlight, there's shadows, there's daylight now.
Okay.
One streak above her, way up in the sky too, above her head, exactly where they've been doing all night long, but this time it was in the day. And you know what it looked like? It looked just like a contrail of a jet way up high. But this one just appeared like a shooting star would and then disappeared really quick.
Okay.
It's amazing. It was the first daytime sighting I've had of a shooting star phenomenon that these creatures produce.
Yeah.
And this one, of course, was lit up and it was a white-like contrail. Very interesting, fascinating. So let's go on to the next one. We've got several to go here.
Let me ask you a quick question here. Well, I'm going to bring this up because a lot of people are going to say this, okay? They're going to say, oh, maybe you just saw a bat. But you have been in the field so many times, that both of you have. You know what bats look like at night. You know what bats look like during the day if it's, you know, the part where it's dusk. I have a hard time believing that we can make those mistakes between these kinds of creatures, especially when it comes to birds. People know what they see when they see a bird in the sky. Like, oh, it's a bird, it has feathers. But when you see something like this, clearly, it's different. It's not the same. So I just had to throw that out there because I know there will be a few people who are going to be skeptical of this. And they're going to ask, okay, you saw a bat in the AM hours.
Jane really knows the differences between bats, various kinds of bats, and many various kinds of birds.
Yes. I used to do bat surveys. I'd go down into old mines in case abandoned, and do a lot of bat surveys and tag them and everything like that. So I know bats behavior, and some of them are similar. And to the layman, absolutely they can get them mixed up. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And even birds that are flying around in the crepuscular hours. I'm sure that a lot of people have seen these creatures and thought they were birds in the evening hours, the smaller ones. But, you know, like anybody that has been trained in something, you get to be familiar with what you're looking at, and you'll know the differences.
Yeah, and I didn't mean to interrupt you, but these things just are starting to pop into my mind, and I'm excited because the both of you have seen these pterosaurs. You've seen pterosaurs. And Jane, you've seen them up close. When I think of the wings, you know, I know they're not the same as bat wings, okay? Maybe the skin isn't the same. Seeing one like you have, can you give us a little understanding about the way they looked? A lot of people are wondering about this because they really want to know how different these creatures are from a bat. When you first, I know, you know, they flap their wings differently. They fly differently. Their shape is different, all these other things. But I'm trying to give it an example to the audience. You know, I know there's a lot of people excited about this. They just want to know what it's like when you see those wings and when you see this kind of creature. Is it shiny? Is it furry? Does it have any feathers? Things like that.
Well, again, we're seeing them as a fraction of a second, and it is dark. And even with the night scope, you can't really pick up that kind of detail from them. But if you think about a bat, every bat that you've seen flies erratically, right? Because they're using echolocation and they're looking for moths, which fly erratically and things like that, moths and other night insects. And that is the biggest difference between a bat and a pterosaur. They don't fly erratically. Okay. Now, they might take big swooping turns like, you know, we've seen earlier here and there and things like that, but they will not do that erratic behavior of a bat. So if you see an animal and you go, oh, that could be one, and it's moving in a crazy format, you know that's a bat.
Okay. Excellent. Excellent information.
Mm-hmm.
Next slide.
Please.
Hey, Jane, this is one where you and me were together. And of course, I'm looking the wrong direction. And you look over at me, looking in the wrong direction. Now you're looking at me and you look over my head and you see this out of the corner of your eye. Mm-hmm. Tell us what you saw.
Well, again, as your eyes start adjusting to these, a lot of times what you're seeing is a blob or a streak until the very end. As you can see here, that's what it looks like, blob, blob, blob. And then I finally get to see the face, and you see the head crest. But again, you look and see up there, the wing, I couldn't see above that. So either it's bent in an area in a way that in my visual, it's more like a plane, so I'm not catching a good visual on it, or it could be that it was cloaked. And the same thing with the back end. You can see it's just kind of, that still looks blobby. And then again, right before it disappeared, I don't know whether it like tucked its head in more and its wings were back. I don't know, but often that's what you'll see.
Okay. Yeah, that's kind of the story of my comical comedy of errors. Is I'm always looking away when she sees the greatest of sightings. So the way, what do these lines here indicate, Jane?
It's just denoting great speed.
Okay. So it's really moving fast, and she's looking at it, and as she just for a moment sees a shape that she recognizes, and then it blobs out again and completely counter illuminates, evidently, and appears into the night sky.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the only thing a lot of times that would be this size is owls. And owls do not fly like these guys do, not even close. Okay. So if you're seeing something that, you know, catching a flyby a fraction of a second, you know that's got to be a pterosaur. And if they weren't cloaking, you could probably see them for more than a fraction of a second. But a lot of times when they're cloaking, it's because they're adjusting whatever the background is, and you can't kind of catch them in between that. Yeah. And so that's how you get an actual visual on them.
And have you ever seen an owl flying? It has its wings seem to be blunted off like that?
No.
And yet that's really typical of what we saw there multiple times.
Yep.
Okay.
So of course she kind of rubbed my nose in it and laughed at me a little bit, being all upset. This is more of a grayed out background and kind of a blow up of what she saw.
Okay.
The wings were blunted off. It had a head crest, had a beak, had a, a very typical pterodactyloid-sized body, style of body. And as you know, rhamphorhynchoids have necks that go right into the back of their head. Those long-tailed pterosaurs have necks that go right into the back of their head.
Yes.
The pterodactyloids have their necks connecting to their heads at a 90-degree angle from the bottom. So in order for them to look forward, they have to tilt their head, their neck, and look and lift it up so that they can look forward. Otherwise, they're going to be looking straight down.
Okay.
So we're thinking, because of that configuration, is this probably did not have a tail? We're open to the possibility that it could be an anomaly, that it may have a tail, but we didn't observe any.
Okay.
And it fit with a pterodactyloid pterosaur.
Yeah.
Now, I'm so happy we have Jane with us today to talk about this next site.
Okay.
We had David Wetzel observing a rock outcropping to the right. Jane was observing a rock outcropping in the middle, and I was observing one on the left. And the reason we wanted to observe this particular mountain range with its rock outcroppings is because we felt it was a really great location for a pterosaur to be able to hide out with seclusion and safety. It was high up where it could just jump off and catch wind, and and that was just a thought.
Okay.
We had seen pterosaurs flying in the area, their lights and things like that. So I told Jane, let me stop share for just a moment. I told Jane, I said, the first thing about looking for pterosaurs is when you see one, it's going to be the same thing as having a heart attack. The first sign and symptom of a heart attack, denial. You will deny it. It's a knee-jerk reaction. You can't help yourself. You can't get into your head that the light phenomenon or a black flying creature or something that's happening might be a pterosaur. And let me tell you, we as researchers have to really get over that. And the way we get over it is to call out our observations. If I see something, I'll say, hey, I'm seeing this. Do you see it? And eventually, the guy next to you may see it. And Jane is in the middle of both David Wetzel and I. And she's observing something, and she doesn't tell me. And she told me later that she was intimidated, that she didn't call it out right away because she just had a problem with it,
I was in denial.
Okay. It happens.
It was at the very beginning of my research.
Yeah, and so she was in denial. She didn't want to call it out. She's like, well, maybe that wasn't what I'm thinking it is.
Mm-hmm.
And so she sees something, and then right away hands me the night vision scope. Now, I didn't see anything because I had regular binoculars. David Wetzel was using a thermal imager, but he wasn't looking at her outcropping. He was looking at his.
Okay.
So she hands me the night vision scope and says, Garth, look at my rock outcropping and tell me if you see anything. Oh, okay. And as I look, I see this. Is it coming? Let's see. There's something going on here. Okay. Oh, let's go back up. All right, one more time. There it is. I see that coming up from the bottom of the canyon, flying up. I'll show it again. She hands me the night vision scope, and I see this. And the second it went above the horizon into the skyline, I couldn't see it.
Mm-hmm.
It blended in for the sky. But before it got to the sky, I was able to watch it fly. And I wish I could pause it somehow. All I can do is replay it. But you could see it's got nubby wings that should not be capable of making it fly.
Right.
But it's flying very well and even elevating. So Jane, what did you see just before you handed me the scope?
The outcropping that I was looking at had a a fairly shallow cave going back. And I'm looking at that and I see a blue light, kind of a blue glow. It's not like a bright flash. And then it disappears. And then I see it again forward on the edge of the outcropping. And it didn't disappear. It was there for a half a second. And then it jumped off. And it was very similar. I think just about everybody has seen a hawk or a crow or something on top of a telephone pole, and they jump off and they descend a little bit, and then they pick up and they fly. Right? You guys have all seen that?
Yes.
And that's what this blue light did. It jumped off and it kind of went down a little, and then it went up, and then it disappeared. So, and I saw that, and I just really, I mean, I think this had been maybe my second time out, second or third time out. So I was very new to all of this, and I just wasn't sure that what I was seeing is what I was seeing. And Garth's little saying about, the pterosaurs and the heart attack really helped me get over that and understand what I was seeing.
And call it out.
Anyways, when I handed him that obviously either the pterosaur I saw had went back down, or it was another one seeing the one I observed going up that went up to go join it. So I'm really glad I handed it to him, though, because then he had a sighting and I had a sighting in the very same area, and which confirms the sightings.
Yes. Yeah. And I will say, this is where other people jump on board and say, oh, this is kind of like clashing between UFOs. Because a lot of people think this is what UFOs are. This is the kind of the behavior. But they don't realize that these are potentially pterosaurs that they're seeing out there, these globes or these lights and things like that. Although we've seen larger spectacles of lights in the sky that kind of are more machine-like, but not like this though. But I think they kind of get confused, unknowing that what they're seeing could be a pterosaur instead of a unidentified flying object such as a alien craft or UFO.
Yeah, and that is very true. A lot of times these pterosaurs will do a really bright flashlight, like Dave was talking about, that would even light something up. And when you see that in the sky, if you had no idea about any of this research, it would be, you would wonder what the heck was that?
Yeah.
And then if you were into aliens or New Age or anything, it would be very easy to interpret that as a UFO sighting. And indeed, UFO stands for unidentified flying object. So indeed, it kind of is a UFO until you can identify it. So, but not an alien.
Right. Or a craft.
Yeah, or a craft.
Excellent.
Okay, so that was just a phenomenal sighting. And I asked, why don't we see the ends of the wings here? Well, because they were blended in better to the terrestrial background.
Okay.
Also, remember that when they're flapping really fast, maybe the ends aren't as easily seen anyway. Now, this was an amazing sighting. Remember, if you look at her notes here, she says that this point was probably a little more symmetrical.
Yeah.
And basically 3 points to this, what shape would you use? Triangular kind of shape here. Not 1 point, but 3 points at the top. And we really had to think about what she was seeing. We had to put our interpretations into this and try to figure out what was going on. She said there was lights at the bottom edge here, little individual lights, as you can see, that she illustrated, as well as a dimly lit glow beyond those lights in this area. Everything else was black. Jane, you described it as like a black crow and moonlight shining off the shiny feathers.
Yeah.
That's kind of the way it felt. But this thing is producing its own light. And what are these tips and points? What is this all about? Well, as she began to observe and watch it. Why don't you tell us what happened?
So the
First of all, you saw a flash here, right?
Yeah. And so I stopped. I was walking down the path going towards the right, and I saw the flash, and I stopped, and then I don't know, I just swung I had the night scope, and I swung it over, and what I saw first was, can you go back to the other one, please, Garth? Yeah, what I saw first in the scope was this upper portion, the 3 points and the kind of the widening and everything. And I think I said something like, wow, or, oh, whoa, look at that, or, hey, what you doing? And at that point, this animal flipped that left side where his pointer is down so quick that you knew that that animal had done that 1,000 times. It was just a habit. It was something you do as unthinking as when, say this is something women do more than men. If you have long hair and hair and the breeze is blowing your hair and you just flip it out of your face, you just don't even think about it. And that's how he did. He flipped it back so far. And I don't know whether you realize this or not, but when the animals, this tip up here is the very end of their wing tip. Okay. Yeah. Garth, if you could show kind of how the wing tip would go down.
The wingtip here, we believe, is crisscrossing. We believe this wing came from this arm, and this wingtip came from that arm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So they're crossing like swords on its back,
Yes. Excellent.
So down at the bottom there on the right and left would be where the claws, his front claws, would be resting on the log.
Yep.
Okay. So this is a picture where he's already flipped it, and he had been looking at me, and then something flew over his head. I didn't see whatever flew over his head, but I could tell by his reaction that something was there. And these animals do have basically bird-like movements. And if you've ever seen a bird perched and another bird or something flies overhead, and they kind of hunch down a little and they tilt their head and they jerk their head to follow it and look at it, that's what he did.
Okay.
And so I knew he was looking at something that had flown over, and then he turned around and looked at me one more time, and then he just took off. So the lighting down at the bottom, I couldn't tell if it was, he just took off like that. He turned around and looked at me real quick, and then flew off. And
you said that when you were talking, you were kind of like talking to it like you would talk to calm an animal that you've done so many times in your zoological work. What does this creature do as it's turning its head and looking at you?
I would say, just curious. I got the feeling that he was distracted by whatever else was flying around up there. I'm guessing it was another pterosaur because I couldn't see anything. I wasn't taking the night scope off of him. I was leaving it on him, but I would glance up over and look, and I couldn't see anything, not a flash or anything. But I knew there was another one in the area because I originally saw a flash and then saw him. And then obviously his reaction to what was flying up. So it seemed like his attention was divided a little bit between me, which he was curious at because he knew that I saw him.
Yeah.
And whatever was happening. And then finally, whatever was happening overtook what he was dealing with me. I think if there hadn't been that other commotion, he would have stayed longer. We would have had more of a connection. But this is the first sighting of Moses. This is the one I called Moses, and then just kept throughout the entire summer, just kept seeing him more and more and more.
And I want to reiterate again to you folks that she's trained to know the difference in what she's seeing here. Okay.
Yes.
And one more thing too, Jane. What was the size again of this creature?
At this point, he was probably the size of a small crow, a small one. And then by the end of summer, he was the size of a large raven. So we're saying about 1.5 to 2.5 feet growth difference a foot during the summer.
And most people will think that pterosaurs are supposed to be these large creatures, which they are, but there are small variations.
Yes, there are. And even the big ones are small at some point in their life. Yeah. You know.
Mm-hmm.
So we're still trying to interpret that. Are we dealing with a small variety of pterosaur that doesn't get very, very big, with smaller pterosaurs that are still growing up, and they will eventually get really, really large? Because we have seen giant ones.
Yes, very giant.
Jane saw one that when she gave this the size estimates, it came up to at least 30 feet long.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Tail, and without a head. The head was blended in, so with just the front of the wings to the back of the wings. This stunningly gigantic creature. Yeah. So yeah, we don't know if these are growing up into that, or are there different species. I have a feeling it might be both.
Yeah, combination.
I would say there's both kinds, just like you have eagles and sparrows, you know.
Yeah. Now this again was my look away moment. Fluffing my pillows on the ground. We get lawn chair equipment, and I just literally I took the pillows off of a lawn chair, and I take this as a part of my accoutrements for field research, and I spreading it out, trying to get comfortable. Why? Because I don't want to strain my neck all night long looking up. So if we lay down, we can look up all night long without straining. So again, we're separating ourselves. We're about 10 feet apart, so we can triangulate if we do see anything. And as I'm setting things up, I look up in the sky, and way over on the other side of the sky, the other half of the sky, right above us is black, dark sky. But way over, about not to the horizon, but about halfway there, I see this zebra-striped set of clouds, a high set of zebra-striped clouds, right? And they're very conspicuous. It's the only white clouds anywhere in the sky, and it's dark, and that's a definite spot where if anything flies underneath it, it's going to contrast.
Yeah.
Pterosaurs don't blend in that fast. They blend in good, but they're not instantaneous. Well, I told her, I said, Jane, see those clouds? If a pterosaur flies underneath those, it's not going to blend in time. You're going to see it, the outline of the pterosaur. And again, I go and fluff my pillow and look away, and she sees it. And, oh, God, I saw it. Oh, my God. So why don't you describe what you saw there?
Yeah, that was pretty funny. You know what? His description of how I would see it was perfect. He told me exactly what I would see. And as I'm looking up and seeing this, and by the way, this was naked eye. This was not with a night scope. I just see this creature almost exactly like how it's drawn here, fly across, catching him over the cloud. And his wings ended and they blended into the night sky. But I could see the rest of him, see the perfect silhouette of what would be a pterosaur. The roundness of his tail. Probably had I been a little more experienced, I would have been able to pick up more detail. And the same thing with the head, but this was my very first sighting.
Okay.
So yeah, but that was exciting. And man, we had a laugh over that because he had just said that. Oh, I would say maybe a minute before. I looked up and there it was.
Okay.
Then this was an earlier sighting, but it's a significant one because it talks about how these creatures can hover, literally hover, not so much like hummingbirds, I'm thinking. They probably can hover like hummingbirds, but what I'm thinking is, have you ever been to the beach and you got some breadcrumbs and you start throwing them up in the sky for the seagulls? Those seagulls will ride the air currents and even fly backwards, and they will maintain their position in the air while you're feeding them. And then when you throw the crumb, they'll zip into any direction to eat that breadcrumb. Well, I think these creatures are riding the air just like that. But I think they can hover with much less wind current than a seagull was at the beach. That wind current at the beach was 15 miles an hour or so.
Yeah.
I think if there's even a 5 mile an hour or less wind, it's enough to keep these amazing flying creatures aloft. Now, watch this carefully. Look at the star cluster, and it suddenly starts to move. The whole star cluster, it was multiple small little stars, barely visible to the naked eye, but very, very visible to a night vision scope. This was observed by Scott Norman, myself, Wetzel, and several others that have researched with us over the years. Have you seen something like this, Jane?
I have, actually. Not quite as many stars, but it was the same phenomena. And what's interesting about it is these clusters seem to move slowly. So it was our consensus that this is a group of pterosaurs, and that it could be a mating thing. It could be a regrouping for migration. Who knows? Who knows? We really don't know. But they seem to want to stay together for time.
What we're thinking is that it's some kind of social behavior that they do. I think that they could even, in these groups, they can pick between males and females, and they can pair off, and then they can go have a courtship. Whatever it is, we are observing this kind of behavior. We don't believe it's UFOs. We have studied this enough to realize it's the creature creating light, or creatures, plural, creating light and out together. Now, this is exactly what I was talking about in a pairing off courtship situation. I made it all green because I was looking through my night vision scope, and I'm in a lawn chair, and I'm looking about 45 degrees up, and I suddenly see this fast fly in. Boom, it just stops. It was the weirdest thing. It just stops. And it blended into the other stars, the dim stars. And I'm going, right away, I call one of my other fellow researchers, Matthew Spites, and I say, hey, you're not going to believe what I just saw. And it's still there. It hasn't gone out. So I'm talking with him, and I observed it. It stayed illuminated. It blended in with the other dim stars. I watched it for at least 3 minutes. And then suddenly, 7 stars begin to slowly move to the right. I imagine it was the same one plus 6 others. 7 stars go across the sky, and then suddenly 5 stop and 2 continue. And I watched them go across the sky. They got lower and further away and harder to see. I watched them for about 15 minutes before I blow away. And as you do a lot of night observations, you able to hear me okay?
I can, yeah.
I had a note that said we were having internet trouble. Anyway, as you look at the stars lower to the horizon, the heat of the Earth and the heat waves will be rising, and they will distort those stars, and they look twinkling. They twinkle more towards the horizon. The stars directly overhead don't twinkle for the most part, but the ones on the horizon will. So as they got lower, they just started to get more and more difficult to see. And I'm sure the mirage had a lot to do with that.
Yeah, amazing.
Now, this is not the bridge near one of our target areas, but it looks a lot like it. And I just put it together for computer graphic reasons so you could get an idea of what was observed.
Sure.
Now, this is very similar to the bridge. The plants and everything are different. There's mountains in the background, but they're different. And I just threw the moon up there to be cool. I don't remember if there was what the moon phase was at the time. This was very fascinating. A bright blue basketball-sized light appeared overhead. Now, this was not to any of our researchers. This was a landowner that lived in this area.
Mm-hmm.
He was excited about the fact that we were coming over there doing research on his land, that he started to do his own observations, and this is one he reported. It appeared over his head so bright that it casted a shadow on the ground. So this blue basketball is flying through the air, and it suddenly morphs into a golf ball, but it's white. And then it slowly goes off into the sky and blends into the dimmest stars.
Mm-hmm.
And that tells you a lot about the capability these things have in producing a light and manifesting the light they want us to see.
Uh-huh.
That blue spot was probably a big predominant area on its chest, perhaps. We're not sure.
Yeah.
Because we don't know what angle we're seeing these things on. It's hard to say. Maybe you can induce it in such a way that you can see it from the front or the back or the side. I don't know. It's very mysterious, but it's fascinating. And the phenomenon is consistently with these creatures.
Yes, and that blue is very common to see, and I truly believe it's a form of communication.
Same
blue,
here.
We've seen blue. Personally, I've seen the blue, white lights, pink, red, a lot of red, which I believe is what we're seeing if they're flying away from us, and so we're looking at the back of them. Sometimes you'll see red. So it takes a while to kind of figure what the colors mean.
Yeah.
And from my research, I came to the determination that more than likely the blue light is a social light. That is one kind of like a tiger shuffling when they, it's like saying, hey, I'm friendly. Are you friendly too? You know,
right.
Mm-hmm.
And that's probably why some would say that some of these small creatures in the abyss that are glowing like a bluish color, that's to, in a sense, mingle. Perhaps. Pterosaurs have the same capability to where they have that blue, they're actually communicating or mingling with something or somebody else, one of their own kinds.
That's what I really came to the conclusion, you know, after doing a few years of this research and actually doing, I had made myself a blue light and everything. And yeah, I think that that's exactly how they communicate.
Yeah, to save our night vision, we would use colored lights. And of course, the normal color to use is red. That's the military standard. So we started out using red lights to save our night vision. But as we begin to see that these creatures, when they get startled or are more nervous, they may manifest more white, orange, and red. And when they're curious and when they're more friendly, so to speak, we see more blue, aqua green colors. And this is just interpretive. You know, we're open to the possibility that we could be wrong, but we have seen literally every color, purple, orange, pink, different, and also every different intensity of those colors. So you right of each.
Yes.
Let me chime in on this one, Garth, here real quick. So I know the audience is probably going to ask, okay, how is it possible that a creature can emit different colors of light?
Well, we think that there are other creatures, of course, that can produce light. The deep sea creatures can, the glowworm can, and the firefly can. Yeah. So we have different varieties of creatures that are able to produce light, and not just one color of light. They can produce various colors of light. Red light, blue light, yellow light, green light. Very common throughout nature to see this, but we've never seen a larger terrestrial creature producing light. Usually it's an insect on land or the deep sea creatures. So there is precedent for it. And I'm sure the same purposes that are used by those other creatures, it probably used for the same reasons, for hunting, for social interaction, for various purposes to live and thrive.
Yeah.
They're ocular,
Okay.
and the audible is what the bats use. They have sonar.
Right. Right. Two more questions related to this. I'm sure people want to know, where was this? Are you able to disclose the location?
Yeah, it's in a confidential location, and we're
Okay.
trying to keep it secret. I really hate to say that, but
I understand.
Lock it up where I don't have to show actual locations. Otherwise, it'd be easy to just go take a picture of it and show you.
Sure.
But the sensitivity of our research is such that we want to protect the landowner and his personal trust in us. He doesn't want foreigners and visitors coming
Researchers out there like crazy. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I can understand that completely. I've been a part of that. So we need to respect those who are allowing us to come in on their property or their areas to do our research. And we're blessed just to be able to have the opportunity to do so. So we also got to be respectful. When you're observing, do you use a form of communication back?
I know I have.
Okay.
I don't know whether Garth has or David Wetzel has, but I have, and sometimes you get responses and sometimes you don't. I noticed that two things. One, that they will respond like maybe the very first one or two times you try to interact. After that, either they lose interest or they realize you're not another pterosaur, or they realize that even though you're trying to communicate with them, who knows what we're saying.
Yeah.
And maybe saying the same thing over and over, and they're like, they lose interest.
Yeah. I understand.
The other way for communication is just developing a relation with them by constantly being there. And then they start building a trust in you. And I know I had one, I don't know if you have this in your slides, Garth, or not, but I had one where it actually, I was packing up to leave and I was coming around my vehicle going towards the back, and it stopped me in my tracks. It was right in front of me, and it had a nice blue glow. And then, so I stopped and I'm talking to it, and I had already packed away my blue light, so I couldn't do a blue light back to him, but I kept talking, and then it moved a little bit, like as if the animal had just taken a step or two to the side, and the blue intensity was less, and then almost faded. And each time it was like the animal had shifted a little bit. It was all right within probably 1 to 1.5 foot area, you know. Okay. And then he stopped. Then he either flew off or just stopped doing the light. And I was really sad that I had packed my light away, because that would have been a neat thing to
yeah, absolutely
flash back to him.
Now that was the one you named Tom, I believe.
That could have been Tom. Yeah, I don't know, because I didn't get a visual on him. All I saw was that. But yeah, by that time I had seen Tom, and Tom had been hanging out in the area.
Okay, I like the name.
Tom was the size of a turkey, so turkey was kind of the direction that was taken for the name.
Perfect name then.
yeah, really neat sighting on that one.
Yeah,
got very
excellent.
Close to him.
All right. Wow.
I don't know, did you want me to talk about him or not, Garth?
We may have time to talk about him on the next slides.
Okay.
This was Dylan Sass saw this in 2010, I believe. Yeah, 2010. And Dylan is the son of Brian Sass. Brian Sass has been to Cameroon looking for Mochilium bembe. Brian Sass is the only guy I personally know that has seen Mochilium bembe. Only guy of anybody else that has seen it, except for natives.
Yeah.
As a researcher, he saw it as the head was going underwater. His son Dylan Sass came along for an expedition. 40 feet above his head, he's looking, and he had a iPad and drew this on the spot. He said it had wings that were about 5 feet long. And when you add the body width, it was roughly a 12-foot wingspan, and had a black, non-illuminated head, rump, and wings. And the body was glowing with a dim blue. I can't remember if he says it was through night vision only, but because he draws blue, I'm thinking it's naked eye, because you wouldn't see a color without that. When we have a night vision scope, we have a naked eye and we have a night vision scope eye. So you can see color if you're using both eyes, if you're not closing your naked eye. So this was a fascinating, big sighting, very close to him, just very, very, 40 feet away. You could throw a rock that far. Now, after that, Brian Sass sees this is his dad again. Black, the How to Train Your Dragon movie had just come out, the cartoon about this guy catching a dragon. And those dragons in the movie are called Night Furies. So he kind of named it a Night Fury moment. He sees this black figure just zipping through the sky right here. And then he sees another black figure zipping through this way. And then he sees the front edge of two wings light up and flash so brightly that when he closed his eyes, he could still see it. Like looking at the sun, you see the spots after you look at the sun. Yeah. He could still see the shape in his eyes after he closed his eyes. So he goes to a book and traces a picture of a pterosaur in the similar flying configuration that he saw. And he says, and he signed it right here, Brian Sass. Says it looked a lot like this, but there was no head, body, or tail involved. You couldn't see any legs or anything. I just saw the wings. Yeah. So I took his drawing and erased everything else. And I said, Brian, is this more like what you saw? He says, yes, that's what I saw. Okay. And interestingly, he said that if I'll back it up here, he said that there was a glowing, very bright on the edges of the wings, and the outer ridge, bluish white, head and body are inferred, possible tail not seen, inferred, okay. But he told me later that there were dark areas here on the wing that matched with this webbing on the back of the wing. The trailing edge of the wing seemed to be supported by a thicker structural material. Yeah. And the reason that he could see this configuration is because the light on this wing here shone so brightly, it illuminated the backside of this wing, and not all the light got through in these particular spots. And so you see possible structure, or maybe wing folding, not sure, like a shower curtain.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay.
So very fascinating sighting. Again, it was a little further away. I kind of questioned how far away it was. I think it might have been closer, but he went with 350 feet away. Okay. Little at a football field. And again, Brian Sass, he said there's two supports are thicker, not letting light through.
Okay. Interesting.
Now, this was a totally different area by a guy that I'm not completely convinced, but I thought it was interesting. He said that he saw a creature that looked like a Pteranodon sternbergi. However, it had a tail with a point at the end. Okay,
like diamond flange.
Yeah, similar head crest. I don't know if it had a full-on flange, but some kind of point. He drew this. He sent this to me.
Okay.
He says it had a little more of a patagium here, and at least one finger or point, and then it also had two extra points here, very similar to Brian Sass's sighting. Mm-hmm. And he said it also went out a little further and had this weird configuration and a point on the wing like that. That's not a mistake. That's not a misalignment. He said that's the way it was.
Okay.
I'm open, but this is the one I'm probably a little more skeptical. But things like the way he described this here is what makes me think that he's got a possible true sighting. Anyway, that one I've had a little more problem with his credibility.
Sure, sure.
There's some other reasons. We can get into it more later.
Okay.
This is the one I saw the night after Brian Sass and Dylan Sass saw their sighting. I saw this one. I paced it out. It's about 180 feet away, about a little more than half a football field, and roughly 10 to 12 foot wingspan. And again, I didn't tell if there was a head crest to it. It was more of a silhouette.
Okay.
What I saw here was a significantly sized creature rounding a turn like this. He was rounding a turn. And in his turn, by the way, that's probably why he wasn't blending in, because he was in the process of turning. If they fly in a straight line, they seem to counter-illuminate more consistent. But in a turn, I think they're in an adjustment period. They're thinking, there's probably all unconscious, I need to adjust my lighting for the background, and that's in a turn they're adjusting. So I was able to see him for a moment. I saw his wings in the process of going up. That's when I first saw them. They topped out and they were coming back down. So they went up and they were coming back down. And that's how I saw this creature. It was a split second, and I was able to see it moving very agilely.
Okay.
And moving its wings.
Interesting.
Now, this is one of the, if you want to take a screenshot, you want to take this screenshot right here. Together a lot of the major sightings into a single slide. Scott Norman saw it, it's just 17 feet away, roughly 10-foot wingspan. Jane sees this one about a 4-foot wingspan, and that it was the wingspan if it had wingtips, if it kept going.
Well, I would venture to say, well, I think that's what I was thinking altogether, was the 4 feet if the wingtips kept going.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, and then I saw one roughly 10 foot, and then Jane saw this one here. We didn't write it down on her field notes, but estimated at 14 feet. Just a gut feeling, because it was quite a ways away. I don't know, Jane, but I'm thinking that was about a half mile away where those clouds were.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
And then I saw a little 2-footer here and here. Both of them had illumination going on. This was the meteor phenomenon that it was producing. And yet I saw the black creature afterwards for a moment. This one actually lit up wings, so I was able to see both phenomenon. Here, Brian Sass sees one just the front edge of the wings, flashed him so brightly it left a chemical imprint in his eyes. At 350 feet away, he estimated a 12-foot wingspan. His son estimates a 12-foot wingspan on his sighting with a glowing body, black wings. Jane sees for the first time, and we'll talk about this one in a moment, a very small one, only 10 feet away though. Talking maybe a foot and a half creature in the wingspan.
Yeah.
Wings were blunted off. The wings were squared off.
Okay.
And then I saw one right next to Jane, and I had other observers with us. And I estimate this one was about 15 inches. And it flew right over my head. I'm telling you, if I'd had a big net, I could have probably swacked him.
It's interesting when you bring up the square wings. I've heard about people bringing up the square wings before. So I was curious if there was really some credibility behind it, but when you bring it up, it just makes it more fascinating.
Yeah.
So
And the one there on the bottom, the crow-sized one, 10 feet away. I know it's hard to see on this one because it's small, but I actually saw the claws on the wings.
Okay.
Yeah, we're going to blow up on that, and we're going to show where that slide came from in a little bit. Now, Jane is not the only one who has to relieve herself. We all do. So Nate called, and I'm minding my own business, but somebody else is watching me, and it's not one of the observers. I walked about 100 feet away. I was out near the trees, and I saw a half of a red flash behind the tree, and it looked like that. It was fascinating. I don't know if it was flying behind the tree or was it hanging on to the back side of the tree, but I saw of a dim lit red light. Now, earlier I had seen a yellow lit light and a red light, and they were about 8 inches. And I saw them over the pond we were observing. This was pretty much the same kind of thing, but again, it was behind a tree. So really fascinating. Of course, I was the only one to see it. Case. Now, Jane, here it is. Go ahead.
Yeah, okay, so this one, I know it looks kind of funny the way I drew it, but if you took that picture and held it above your head, then it would look how I saw it.
Okay.
Looking up at its belly and its head. And I saw him, and usually I let out some sort of a little ooh or ah, and he just tilted his head down, looked at me, and continued flying. But of course, by this time, I've been experienced in observation, and I am taking in as much as I could.
Yep.
So his eye is I saw clearly. His head crest, saw the wing claws, and by that, then of course that was it, and he was gone. The night flyer was gone. So by the time I get that type of an observation and that detail of observation, I don't get down to the back end before he's gone. But that was a neat flying too, because we'd been out for quite a while and hadn't seen anything. And we were thinking about, and I think we even were packing up, weren't we, Garth? Were you with me on that one? Yeah, you were. Yeah,
I was there, of course, because I was looking away.
That's right. That's right. And he flew just, it was the cheat that little cheat, that peep that they make, that drew my attention, and I whipped my head over to look, and there he was,
I see.
And looked down at me, and now he was gone. But I was very pleased with the fact I could see his eyes so clearly.
Yeah.
And that was the second time I've seen wing claws on there.
Okay. How many claws?
I'm sorry?
How many claws were there?
3 on each. I saw 3 on his right, and I only saw the 2 on this one, but I know he's got 3. Oh, well, maybe he lost a claw. I don't know, but I'm pretty sure that he would have had 3 if I'd been able to catch it.
Okay.
In my sight long enough. But at that distance, they're far enough apart that you have to kind of shift your eyes a little bit, and by that time they're blanked out again.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a good sketch, by the way. I like that sketch.
Oh, thank you.
She's a very good field artist.
Take a picture of that, and then print it out, and then hold that print above your head, and you'll see it really comes to life when you do that.
Okay, I'll do that.
So I darkened it in here, and I put it on a blue background, and it was kind of a more gray background. The lighting was darker than this, but I just put it on something darker to give you a better feel. And I also show how the wings are blunted here.
Sure. Okay.
That was not just because the paper ended. She did that.
No, it wasn't.
Okay. I think a lot of people are probably wondering about that, but that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the wing tips were perfectly blended in. For whatever reason, maybe this particular species, that's just common for it. I don't know. That's one specific area that has been doing this. Other areas haven't.
Okay. When I look at the head crest, I'm thinking Pteranodon.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, the general configuration of the most of the pterosaurs I personally have observed are Pteranodon-like.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to jump in with a question here because I've heard the skeptics bring this one up many times, especially if you're a paleontologist, you've been studying pterosaurs all your life, or a good majority. The head crests are a major problem for them, and the mouth as well, when people say they've seen living pterosaurs. They will say the geological location of a pteranodon is mostly to the coast only. That's where the pteranodons are supposed to only hang out, not inwardly. Well, they're just assuming that no one's observed a living pterosaur, okay? And that the head crest is never the color of the body, that it's always a different color. Have you heard that before? Okay. Yeah, I wanted to get a take of that because that seems kind of strange to me. But again, these are people who are working on the bones, and they come up with these ideas, and they're researching it, and they're coming away with new things. So I thought it'd be important to bring that up because I've heard this over and over again, that the head crest should be a different color from the body, and that these creatures, especially pteranodons, their bill tends to be more like a pelican, according to some, and that's why they stay most to the coastal areas instead of inland.
Are you talking about pteranodons in specifically, or all pterosaurs?
I'm going to say pteranodon species, the pteranodon type of pterosaur.
Yeah, of course, that's just speculation on the paleontologist's part. I mean, they're trying to figure out how it behaved, and they're thinking that, they've found it in aquatic burial locations, therefore it may have been a fishing creature. Okay, everything got buried in Noah's flood and likely got buried with fish as well. So there's other ways to interpret. It could have easily been a creature that eats seafish, shellfish and seafood. That's very possible. Did it have a big gullet like the pelican?
Mm-hmm.
Completely speculative. From the observations that we've had and that have been picked up by natives, we don't see a big, gullet like a pelican has.
Okay.
We don't observe that.
Yeah.
They do fish. We have heard of them fishing.
Sure.
A couple times by natives. So yeah.
And just because they may be fisher predators doesn't mean that they have to be coastal. There's lots of in lakes and large rivers that they could.
That's what I assumed as well. I was thinking I just don't see them staying there their entire periods of their lives. These things can go wherever they want.
Yeah.
And they do.
And they probably don't need, I don't know about this one for sure, but they probably don't need a lot of food to sustain themselves every day. That's a good question. I've never really thought about this one as much, but being a fisher, and they love different variations of fish, but I wonder how much they need to sustain themselves. And if they would actually really would go after human beings as well. But that could be something we could talk about later on if necessary. But just a thought. Well,
we've come to the conclusion that they're warm-bodied animals. Okay. They're and therefore they're going to have to eat quite regularly.
Okay.
Now, whether they have to eat a huge meal every day, I don't know. But I would think that, or whether they would be like a lion where they eat a huge meal and then they're fine for, a few days to come. We really don't know. But I actually don't think that that's true myself, because I think their anatomy doesn't support it, that they would eat a huge meal and then lay around for a few days. That would leave them too open to, being preyed upon themselves. But I would say that they would have to eat pretty much every day. They could survive a day or two without, like us humans could, but I don't think it's to their liking.
Yeah.
Hey, my take on it is that these creatures show such intelligence, such agility. They remind me of dolphins.
Mm-hmm.
They remind me of eagles. They remind me of otters. Very playful. They love to curiously look at things and play in the waves or ride the thermals. Mm-hmm. These creatures have that kind of personality and behavior. To me, I think just like the creatures I mentioned, otters, dolphins, and eagles, they catch food easily.
Yeah.
They get plenty of calories so that they have plenty of other amount of time to investigate, to have fun, to play in the thermals, to play in the waves, and they're just that capable.
Yeah. So maybe they're not at, well, I don't want to say this because if you go back to PNG and the reports, very, very few, I'm sure. I mean, there was one that was recorded, I think that you had brought up too, that there was someone who was actually killed by a pterosaur in PNG. Finn Chauvin, I think it was, in 86. Yeah. So they can attack human beings, especially if they feel threatened. But it makes, and I think when we touched back on this earlier, that they were assumed to be grave robbers. Different kinds of pterosaurs being grave robbers. They would actually go after the bodies of the dead and eat off of those and take them back to their areas where they were inhabiting. Are you seeing some truth to that? Is that a possibility? Not with all these species, of course. But
well, I think it was Pollination and Dr. Baugh on one of their first expeditions. They videotaped natives talking about a funeral that was interrupted by a pterosaur swooping down to try to get in onto the casket. Yeah. And they chased it off with torches. And they explained that it wanted to eat the body. And so they buried the body nice and deep, and they would put torches and things like that there for a little while and then bury it, Yeah. But yeah, I think that is sensational, awesome stuff, but I don't think it's the norm. Okay. I think they can eat carrion, but they also actively eat. Now, Jane has regularly, in fact, that's part of the next slide. Okay. She regularly puts out enrichments when she goes out. This is a zoo-minded individual, right? Jane goes out there as a zookeeper. That's her background. And when she goes into an area, she wants the animals to have something fun to play with and to be enriched. So she'll bring out a glowing tennis ball or something along those lines. And then, of course, she brings a box and she puts mice in the box, lab mice, as an enrichment, because as these things are flying by, they're going to see some mice. Hey, what's that? And that would attract them and get them to, enjoy the area that she's trying to videotape.
I see.
That's exactly what this next video still is all about. Let's go to it. Okay. Now, there we go. Now, can you see the image, Jake?
I can.
Now, this is a very dark image. If you have lights on and you want to see this a little better, shut the lights off and you'll see this a little better, because that's what we experience when we research. Most of our research is done in the pitch black at night. I told Jane, get the thermal imager, get the night vision and couple it to your video camera. So this is the night vision in front of her video camera. She turns the video camera on and she's videotaping herself, putting out a box. Now, right here is a box. You see the box? And probably right here, that little white spot there and the little dark spot here are mice that are on this box. Now, whether you go into the tropics or any other place around the world, if you get up high enough, it's going to get cold. Mount Fuji, I think it's Fiji. Am I saying that right? It's in Africa on the equator, and it is always snow-capped on the equator. So it doesn't really matter where you go. If you get up high enough, it's going to get cold. And where she was researching was very cold that night. Okay. I don't know if it was below freezing, but it was cold enough. So she bundled up. And she put on, how many layers did you have on here? 2 or 3 pair of pants?
I had long johns on and a insulated pants. And then I had probably 3 layers under the parka.
Okay, so she's all bundled up. This is a rough hood. And her expedition vehicle in the background there. And an enrichment box of mice that she's laying out. And these mice are staying on the warm box because it's better than coming on the cold ground. So that plays to our favor. Well, one night, and this is a totally separate incident, Jane. One night, Jane was watching these mice as one of the mice like had a shadow cover it. There was nothing to make a shadow, but there was a shadow covering it, and then suddenly the mouse disappeared. You went and looked for it, and you couldn't find it, right?
Yeah, well, I looked all over, and even on the outside of the box, thinking maybe, because they would run on the rim. And I thought, well, maybe it fell off and was on the other side. But these are lab mice, you know, they're not wild mice, and they're white, and they don't know how to live in the wild, and they made lots of noise. Anytime one of them did escape, I could find them so easily, and it was nowhere to be found. Absolutely nowhere. And that's exactly what happened. This shadow came and it was there, and then it just, I didn't see it fall. I didn't see it lift up. It was just there and it wasn't. Okay. So my guess is that one of these creatures came and it was cloaked and came in. Let's take this picture of me here with the box, and it came from where you would be sitting there looking at this picture, flew right past me, and as it picked up the mouse, now, you know, I'm turning to look, but now his body is cloaking, and so the mouse would be underneath him, either in his mouth, I would believe more so than his hind feet, and so now his body is between me and the mouse, and I just, to me, it just looks like it disappeared.
Yeah.
I didn't even hear a squeak from the mouse.
Now, the paleontologists are looking at the anatomy and physiology of the pterosaurs. Mm-hmm. They've nice, strong necks, big, elaborate heads, big beaks, and giant wings. Their legs are at best mediocre. Some of them are, compared to their bodies, are very minuscule legs. So it's very possible that these pterosaurs are mouth catching these creatures, their prey, and flying off, just gulping it down.
Yeah, that's what I would guess as well.
Okay, I was curious by that.
Yeah, let's get to this video. This is a video still of about 15 seconds of video.
Okay.
That, unfortunately, because of technical difficulties, I've lost the actual whole video.
Oh.
But I was fortunate to save this special still out of the video.
Okay.
Now, what you're seeing here is she's trying to get into her pocket. She needs something out. What did you need in your pocket?
I don't remember. I don't
okay. She's trying to get something out of her pocket, and she can't because she's got so many layers. It's very tight. So she gets this hand to help and pull the lip of the pocket away.
Okay.
So she can make more space to get this hand down into her pocket. She's moving this arm towards the pocket. This is 60 frames a second, Jake. In one single frame, we get 2 lights that appear near her thigh. Oh. And I went through this frame by frame, and I caught it. And I didn't see anything at first except for the strange 2 lights. Mm-hmm. So I blew it up. I enhanced it more with more photographic enhancement to make it brighter. And I begin to see a shape. I see this. Now, I gave this to one of our photographic analysts, Ed Holroyd.
Okay.
Amazing analytical creation scientist. He's a He studies photographically interprets satellite photos, and that's what he does. He's a map expert. Okay. So when satellite photos for mapping, he is into interpretation of what the pixels are showing.
Okay.
I give him this, and he says, I believe she has a purse on her side, and these are two rivets that are shining on the purse. So at least I got him to admit there's something purse-shaped on her thigh. Well, let me just ask her point blank. Jane, did you have a purse on that night?
I did not. Would I? There was nothing to buy out there.
Right.
So I blew it up even more. Now, again, here's the two lights on her thigh.
Uh-huh.
And I began to look, and I saw what I believe may be an outline of a pterosaur. So I'm not the best artist, but I just put this together. I literally traced what I saw and I interpreted the best I could, and I got this shape.
Okay.
Look at the eyes and the head crest and the beak for a moment. Just look at the eyes, head crest, and the beak. You see how the head crest is darker? And it contrasts on what I think is the wing hand.
He's a little guy, isn't he?
Yeah. And so the eye, I don't know if it's black or if it's brighter, because both are there. But I just drew what I saw.
Mm-hmm.
And you could see points right here and right here, slightly lighter. And that's how I am interpreting the ends of the wings.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
The spots on the wings. And again, that's all we had to start with.
Yeah. And that's the ends of the wing are that typical pterosaur blue color.
Yeah.
Did you see that?
Well, Jane, you got to remember, this is night vision.
Oh, yeah. Wow, yeah.
We're not going to have true colors. What we're seeing here is my enhancement.
Yeah, but not, yeah, okay.
Yeah, and I just did it because I wanted to show the blending of how this creature may be manifesting here. Yeah, a very little guy, a crow size, but completely different wing configuration to her.
And Jane, you could feel him?
I could not see him, but I felt him.
Okay, you felt him.
He landed on me, and his wing claws had grabbed the top of my pocket. I could feel that. And his back legs were scurrying on my thigh, like as if he was trying to pull himself up.
Okay. Okay.
Just like a dog would do, if you're trying to lift a little dog up onto your lap, and the back legs would be going.
Okay.
They're trying to scramble up.
Wow.
So, and that was my first clue that, that one of them had landed on me.
Yeah.
And I was pretty cold. I remember that. So I was moving kind of slow, and I kept trying to, the parka was bunched up so much that I kept trying to flatten it to look over it, to look down at my leg.
Mm-hmm.
And he probably was on me for, I'd say maybe about 5 seconds. He was on there for a little bit. And I think actually what had happened is that he was somehow attracted to the heat. When I lifted my parka up, there was heat would have radiated out of there from the warmth of my body. And I think that attracted him.
Maybe, yeah. Amazing.
That right is just something we don't necessarily share this with the public. I know this is a public forum, but this is nothing we're going to say is going to be our proof to the world. Right. This is stuff between researchers that we get excited about. But we are still waiting for that time when we can get clear daylight footage of these creatures, hours and hours and hours of it, to where we really will just silence all the critics and they can see it for themselves. right now, this is just little things that encourage us as researchers.
Absolutely. And excellent work, by the way. I love the animation. I love everything that you're able to create here, and getting it into the actual environment. Having her there too just adds more credibility. I know it's tough to make out, but at least we have something to go off of, and that's what's important.
Yes.
Yeah. So if I can wrap up now.
Okay.
Now, we saw that the Egyptian hieroglyphics include the Ankh, which is their symbol for eternal life, the Jed, which is based on an ox sacrum with the fused vertebra, and the lumbar vertebra with the vertebral processes coming out of the side.
Mm-hmm.
So this is not just backbone. This is the strongest part of an ox backbone. And to this day, when you say that man is the backbone of that group,
mm-hmm.
you're talking about the man that's the most stable or stabilizing presence of that group. So the Jed is a symbol for stability, and the was scepter with the fork ends here, and the pterosaur type head, specifically a pteranodon style, I'm tongue tangled here, pteranodon style head
mm-hmm.
is their symbol for power. And it was given to priests and pharaohs, and was presented also in their gods. The various Egyptian gods would have these staffs.
Yeah.
So we see some parallels, because we have the Egyptian was scepter here and here. We see the similar fork on the cave drawing that we noted earlier, right above the head of a pteranodon-like creature on a man body with 6 fingers on each hand.
Mm-hmm.
Now, for those of you who are studying cryptozoology and you study about giants, 6 fingers kind of jumps out at you.
It does.
It's a powerful illustration that this indigenous people is using to illustrate that this is our powerful God. And we have a symbol potentially of eternal life, maybe, and power. And here we have backbone man. Because see, you have a backbone here, but it's not presented as a stable backbone. This one is. We have vertebral processes going through the entire stick figure. Notice it's got normal fingers, nominal fingers, unlike this one that's powerful, right? But this one is stable. So we have similar symbols in both this indigenous culture here as with Egypt. And obviously what we're thinking is that as people migrated after the flood, they had similar religious ideas.
Okay.
And so to wrap up, this is one of my final slides. It's interesting that Haggai, the prophet in the Old Testament, said, it uses the word desire of all nations to talk about Christ, to talk about Jesus, and that he is coming back.
Mm-hmm.
He says it this way, and I will shake all nations, and the desire of all nations shall come, and I will fill this house with glory, says the Lord of hosts, Haggai 2:7. And so we can see that this desire of all nations, that every nation wants God, but they don't want to come to him on his terms. Well, Jesus came to us so that he was manifesting the presence of God and expressing his perfect word, his perfect mouthpiece is Christ. And we can see that Jesus is our strength. Jesus is our stability. Jesus, if we know him, Jesus is our eternal life. And again, this is the was scepter, the Jed, and the Ankh all in one artistic piece there. And here you see on the hieroglyphs. The Egyptians and these indigenous people want everything that Jesus is, but they're just looking in the wrong place.
Yeah. Yes, they are.
Jesus is our strength, stability, and yes, our eternal life. And that is the message that we want to bring as we study God's creation. And in fact, study the fact that dinosaurs, pterosaurs, lived with man from the beginning and may still be alive today in remote locations.
Absolutely. Amen to that. Wonderful. Excellent work. Wow. So much here that a lot of us are just trying to soak in, but here we have it. A wonderful slideshow, wonderful presentation by Jane and Garth Guessman. It has been a privilege to have them on today. And I know we've gone quite a bit. And let me ask you this. How far in are we? How far have we gotten?
Well, that was the end of my slideshow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
We covered between the last time and this time, we've covered everything.
Okay.
There's more to share. But this is my whittled down version so that get the basics out.
Okay. Okay. We got the basics out, guys. Okay. So that would mean I may want to consider just one more show later on down the road when you have a chance. And it may be probably be shorter, but I'm sure I'm going to have a lot of more questions. This is where I can jump in with questions and ask some things, and maybe even give it a chance for the audience to bring me some questions too and have you answer them, because I know a lot of things are circling around. The wagon wheels are turning, and a lot of people are going to be asking these things. So I want to be able to give them that chance. So we will plan on that next time. But what amazing work that both of you have done in your research, being out there, being in the environments, coming across these things. I know that you can't disclose the locations. I got a hunch because I've seen these reports worldwide. They come out of states, California, Arkansas, Washington, some parts of Oregon. They're all over. And it makes me change my thinking just a little bit as far as what I've seen today as far as pterosaurs. That maybe they're not these vicious flyers that some people have made them out to be. Granted that there are old reports and newspapers about going hunting for dragons in certain areas of California where people used to see them back in the 1800s. It changes my thinking just a little bit. That maybe they're just a curious creature like these wonderful people have brought forward today, explaining that. Kind of like what some would say, like an avian type of bird, like a parrot, that may be able to mingle with you in some way, some form. We shall see. But that's kind of what I'm gathering here, that they are something that is curious, much like maybe a dolphin. Dolphins are very curious by human beings. They're, in a way, so much a protector of human beings. When they see them in distress, they actually come to their aid. There's so much here about pterosaurs we haven't. I think we're touching on the surface here, but there's so much more. It's just the peak is still up there, and the fact that there's only, my guess, 15 to 20 some pterosaur paleontologists out there devoted to these creatures. Like I said before, it tells us how little we may know still about them, but we're getting closer. And the fact that we have zoologists and cryptozoologists out there as well, seeing them, is bringing it all together. Okay, very, very important to have two spectrums here. We have the evolutionist side, we have the creation side. But what's important for you as an audience and for those who are watching, you have to come to an understanding about what you believe. Okay, and the Bible is very clear about these creatures being with us. That's something to take note of, isn't it? Something to consider, because it only gets you closer to the one true God, who's worthy of his creation and being recognized for his creation of pterosaurs. Yeah. And thank you so much for all your work. You're a blessing to this community.
Yeah, thank you. You are as well, and Garth and David Wetzel as well. Just amazing people to work with.
Yeah, and someday maybe If I get the chance, I'd love an opportunity to go out with you guys someday. If you ever will ever have me. I promise I won't get in the way, but I'd love to someday down the road. And Garth, I am just proud to call you a friend and to know you. And all those years of watching you, this has been a great experience, especially important for my viewers. And it's a pleasure to have you on, as always. We're not done. I think I have one more video I need to do with you, okay? Just one more. I'll keep it short.
Hey, Jake, one thing we could do together, I would like to go up to southern Washington and what is it, the gorge area, that area that you saw the pterosaur in that have been many sightings?
Yeah, there's two areas actually, Columbia River Gorge and the Yakima River in Washington State.
Yeah. And I know probably 2 different people that have seen pterosaurs there, and then Peter Beach and Milt Marcy both have been there, and now you said you saw one, so that's definitely a hot spot. I'd like to go check that out.
Oh, I think you'd like it. I mean, you could easily stay out. I was thinking about staying out there for almost a week this next time.
That's better. The longer you can stay out, the more consistency you'll see. That's one thing about the research is a lot of people don't understand that research takes time.
It does.
A lot of time.
Yeah, she's absolutely right, folks. You heard it from Jane.
So count me in on that expedition.
Oh, excellent. I'd love to be with you both. That'd be great. I think you'd love it out there. It's a beautiful spot and very eerie, as I was telling Garth before. There's something about it, and then when you stick around long enough, you may just very well see one and hear one. Yeah, that's the goal. Yeah. So thank you both. Thank you for all your work. I'm grateful for you.
You're welcome.
We're not done here, Garth. We'll talk again soon, okay?
Bye-bye.
We'll chat again soon. And Jane, you take care. God bless.
You too. God bless you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Was this too much for you? Are you still skeptical? Honestly, it's quite all right if you are. Sometimes you have to be just a little. But if you are a full-fledged skeptic, then you are in the wrong field. There is so much more to these creatures than what we have been taught growing up. They're not just flying reptiles from eons ago. No, they are so much more than that. I hate to say it, but paleontologists could be missing out here, folks. I think it would blow their minds if they knew what we knew. And now I know more. But what about you? What do you believe? What do you believe in? I would not have started the ROPEN network if I did not believe this to be real. Not a chance. Oh, but I am a believer, oh yes. These creatures are alive and well. Hundreds of eyewitness accounts around the world. And it's only going to continue. Folks, thank you for your encouraging words to me. Thank you for subscribing, and thank you for putting your faith in the one true God. I am your host, Jacob Esguerra. Seek the truth, keep your eyes on the sky, and God bless every one of you on the other side of this screen. See ya next time.
Thank you.